Okay, so let's get to it. I'll change this. Hopefully it shows up. Huzzah! Okay, but let me shrink this. Okay, there you go. Doctor Strange actor Zara Pythian and husband accused of sexually abusing 13-year-old girl. Huzzah is not the word I should have used when I'm revealing this. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah. The couple have been charged with 14 counts of sexual activity with a child. Alleged victim, now an adult, testified that she didn't know how to get out of the situation. Yeah. So it's not a not a good headline. Like I said, like the contents are actually quite serious of this article. But you'll see why I'm hesitant about this title in a second. Okay, all right. So, Doctor Strange actor Zara Pythian and her husband Victor Mark are accused of grooming and having sex with a 13-year-old girl. Pythian, 36, and Mark, 59, face 14 charges of sexual activity with a child in the United Kingdom. In a police interview at Nottingham Crown Court, the BBC reported, the woman alleged that the sexual abuse began in 2005 when she was 13 and continued until she was 15. The woman, who has not been publicly identified by officials and is in her late 20s, testified in court Thursday. Pythian and Mark have denied the allegations. The couple and their representatives did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The woman looked up to Pythian, she said in the police interview, according to the BBC. I knew it was wrong, but I just didn't know how to get out of the situation or say anything, the woman said in the police interview. I remember trying to copy Zara's actions at the time because I looked up to her and tried to be like her in any way. The woman alleges the abuse began when Pythian, the actress, provided her with alcohol and persuaded her to have oral sex with Mark, her loved one. She testified that she felt as though Pythian coached her to get better at the sexual activity. The Nottingham Post reported, in the police interview, the woman also said Mark threatened to harm her if she told anyone about the alleged abuse, the BBC reported. Pythian and Mark were not married at the time of the alleged abuse. Pythian was 20 or 21, and Mark would have been 42 or 43. And like double her age. Oof. But anyway, the Nottingham Post reported that the woman said in her testimony, the woman who was abused, that she would not have come forward with the allegations if the police had not approached her first. I could never have made a report, she said. I would have died with my shame. Having a child of her own pushed her to speak out, she said. At the time, I had just become a mom and had no option other than to speak my truth and never allow it to happen to anyone else again, she said. Pythian appeared in the... Now here we go, okay? So this is the thing. All right, so this has all been actually quite serious. All been quite serious, right? And it's something, worth talking about, sexual abuse. However, this last paragraph, go all the way down to this last paragraph, because this article seemed fishy to me from the very start. And this is why. Last paragraph. Pythian appeared in the 2016 Marvel film Doctor Strange as a minor character, and she has performed stunts in various movies and TV shows. She and her husband are martial arts instructors. This is the part that made me scratch my head about this title. What? Doctor Strange actor Zara Pythian and husband accused of sexually abusing 13-year-old girl. Really? Really? So, we take a person who is an extremely minor actor, right? Within the film, right? They even describe her as a minor actor. She played a minor role, a fucking background role, or maybe had like 2 lines. She plays a minor role. and the previous Doctor Strange movie, and on the cusp of Doctor Strange 2 coming out, which is just a few days as of this recording. On the cusp of that coming out, you put out a title saying that an actor of Doctor Strange has been accused of abusing a 13-year-old girl, right? Like, this woman and her husband are stunt performers. Usually you don't even get to see them on screen. Like, you'll see them, but like they'll be pretending to be other people. They'll be pretending to be other actors. But like, you see how like misleading that might be? how plainly misleading using some sort of title. Like, yeah, you think that and you're thinking, oh, okay, it's you're thinking maybe someone mainstay of the franchise, right, has abused a child, right? Like, and then you're wondering, how will Disney react to this? Disney will probably never even comment on this, because why? Who cares? I mean, not that who cares, not abusing a child is like no big deal, but it's just like, yeah, we employed this person at one point in the past, like we employ millions of individuals. It's just it's all about the clicks, exactly. That's, I mean, and it got me, like, I clicked on it. It was like I clicked on it and we're talking about it, so it's successful. And look, as a person who shamelessly uses clickbait in their like the stream headline here, right? I do it all the time. I get it, but I expect a little bit better from them. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm throwing stones here. Okay, maybe I'm throwing stones, but like, imagine you just read the headline there, right? And all you do is read the headline. And you're thinking like, man, Disney must have a problem on its hands with like actors like grooming kids for sex. That's crazy, right? Or Marvel or whatever, right? It's like, that's a big franchise, and this is just a minor ass character, right? Like, we can go through. I hadn't thought about doing this before, but I'm curious. Like, let's see. I wonder if her IMDb, let's just see if she even has an IMDb page. Let's see if she even has one, right? Okay, let's just paste Zara Pythian. See what she has here. This is some sort of reel here. This is her. Okay, her acting credits. She was part of the Martial Arts Roadshow. Remember, she's a martial artist. It's a TV series that's filming. Well, that's gonna be awkward for them. Unit 19 filming. She's gonna get cut out of that. ARG, a TV movie post-production. She might get cut out of that. Depends on how big her roles are there. Tribal Get Out Alive, Transit, Street Blood. Okay. Dragon Kingdom Outlawed, Cannibals and Carpet Fitters, Knights of the Damned. Doctor Strange as Brunette Zealot. Guys. They didn't even bother giving her a fucking Brunette Zealot. That's... She doesn't have a name in the movie. She doesn't have a name in the movie. She's a zealot. She's a woman who's a brunette. That's her character. Like, and this is a Doctor Strange actor includes accused of child sex abuse. That's a thing that happened. What is that? Kung Fu Darling as fighter. It's a short. Maybe that's a short above. Maybe that's what this thing is playing. I'm not sure. This actually looks pretty badass. I'm gonna take a look at that. But a landlord. Time to pay the rent. Lauren Jones. The fight room. Katarina. He who dares enter the streets of myth. Another short. Warrioress. Fallen X Assassin 1. Iron Monk, Miss Thunderleg, another video short. She does a lot of those. The Hike, Kate, Fear, Rage of the Innocent, Emily Grimes. Underground Zara, the Teacher, End of Anger, Female Boxer, another video short. The Making of End of Anger, okay. Dude Extras, and Crops for Snipe. Okay, yeah, I have not heard of any of this. I would be much surprised, if any, other than Doctor Strange, that any of you have heard of any of these titles. I'd be shocked if a single one of you have heard of any of these titles. And then the one title in which you you have heard of, right? Even if you've never seen it, you've heard of Doctor Strange, right? Because it's a Marvel movie. Brunette Zealot. That's the person. Now look, they could have still said that, like, hey, this is the actors, right? Like, you could have said something like a stunt actress, Zara Pythian has been accused of this, right? And then later in the article, mention a few of her credits, right? Start with Doctor Strange because it's the one that people know, and mention some other minor roles, and that would have all been fair, you know, like she did happen to star in this, like star. She was in this thing. She was present there, yes, but still, she has a credit, so you could put that in there. But to say that it's a little, just too much. It's too much. But it works. Like I said, I clicked on it. We're talking about it. So yeah. I'm just like going back and reading your comments. Bottomless process. Disney doesn't have to comment because Pythian worked for Marvel before the Disney acquisition, right? No, what? The Disney acquisition happened in like the early 2000s. What? No, the Doctor Strange was firmly. That's just a few years ago. No, that's firmly within the Disney regime. Yeah, that's firmly within the Disney regime. But hello, Ahoy. Intro. That's my new brand name. You mean a brunette zealot? Background character, exactly. Isn't it wild how they glossed over the fact that there was a 42-year-old sleeping with a 21-year-old and a 13-year-old? Like why isn't the dude named here? Oh, he is named. No, at least he's not in the title, but he is named in the article. Sounds like he's the villain in the story. That's an interesting question. I hadn't actually looked at it that way. Well, actually, I did. That did occur to me when I originally looked at it, but I forgot to go over that. Yeah, like it's twice her age. It's a possibility, but maybe not. But it's a possibility that the man who had been so much older and I imagine more well established, had maybe some power in the relationship, might have coerced Zara here to help him groom this 13-year-old. That's a possibility. That could have easily happened. You know, crazier things have happened in relationships. And, you know, he's not the focus. This is our person who happens to have a credit on Doctor Strange. If she didn't have the credit for Doctor Strange, hold on. Because her husband, husband, Victor Mark, is also a actor. So let's see. Sorry, let me just move this over here. And move this aside. I'm trying to get back to IMDb homepage. All right, IMDb.com. Let's take a look. Victor Mark. Okay. So this is her husband acting. It's even shorter. 3 credits as producer. Probably all those short films that we saw before. The Summer Massacre, Fury, Rage of the Innocent. There's one of them, and Crops, another one. So that was her first credit. Maybe this is where she met him. He's an associate producer here, and she's also an actress. It's possible that as a producer he met her on the scene of this. I'm just massively speculating, but that might make sense. Or as a producer he could have just gotten her on to the thing, and then that's where they met. But yeah, so so he barely has any credits himself. This guy, at least a few that are listed here. Not all actors' credits end up being listed. I know this from, well, not my personal experience, but I know of. I've talked to actors and actresses, and especially if they're like, if they're not Hollywood level, you know, if they're not like brand names, sometimes they don't actually list everything. But this is what his IMDb page says. It's not much of anything. And maybe he would have been but if she hadn't had the Doctor Strange credit, Zara, then they might have just like put like, oh, 2 stunt actors, stunt coordinators, not coordinators, but stunt doubles are accused of doing this thing in the UK, and just left it at that. But because Doctor Strange was there, they went with that, and it's pretty deceptive. Gina Raff says, that's her name? No. Like her villain name? No, it's not her villain name. Yeah. The Zelts are a title? Yeah. Yeah, it's just like C-list actor. Exactly. It's just, you know, like swimmer number 5. That's her level of involvement. You know, like, oh, we had a few swimmers in the water for this scene, and she's number 5. There was a bunch of Zelts. One of them was brunette, a brunette woman, and that's her. That's her credit. Why do they even attach to Doctor Strange to a name like this, like all the Disney Marvel's fault? Yeah, it's such shit. Yeah, it's pretty much messed up. Last surprise. Remember the other day when we were debating about the patriarchy? This is yet more evidence of its existence. The husband is barely implicated, and the article was on the wife since she was in one title that got some attention. Fucking ridiculous. Yeah, so I don't want to be too quick. Now, this could have been certainly would have happened, but I don't want to be too quick to just say that it was like the husband who forced her into it, and that she wasn't like some sort of co-equal participant. It very well could have been the case, right? Like, you could have easily see that, you know, it's a clear benefit to him to coerce her into doing such a thing, to like essentially maybe groom her as well, right? Groom his adult lover at the time. They weren't married, but adult girlfriend, because adults can be groomed. We use a grooming specifically when we're talking about children, but you can do the same thing for an adult, right? Like, you can do the exact same thing. You can isolate them. You can make put them in a social and mental state where they feel like they should listen to you as an authority figure, and you can take advantage of them. You can do the same, just as you could do that to a kid, you could do that to an adult. And she was a young adult, right? How many times have I talked about the age of consent here, and talk about raising the age of consent? Because when you're younger, right, when you're still just 18, yeah, you can be taken advantage of in all these ways. So it's a possibility, like Bottomless Prime said, that it was actually the husband, being twice her age, who was actually the villain in this situation. But I don't know. That's just like pure speculation. So I just don't know. Yeah, I'm just leaving that at that. I have no idea. But so like that maybe can be. Maybe that'll be adjudicated in court, especially if she decides to toss some of the train tracks, right, under the bus. But we'll see. My man Kobi is here. Kobi, who is a fantastic individual. Thanks for being here, Kobi. Kobi says, I love Doctor Strange and all, but I just saw a dumb tweet and I want to fight about it with someone. Oh, really? Saw the Northman. It was 10 out of 10. I've heard that it was really good. I'm going to check that out. Kobi, if you want to fight about something, then maybe you and I can fight. Maybe it'll just be you and me. It's not a generic name. No, the Zealots were worshippers of Dormammu. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's what I understand. There were multiple Zealots. Yeah, I get that. We get that. There are worshippers of Dormammu. Just like we have swimmers, right, and a water, right. You have a class of individuals, and she gets brunette Zealot. I understand that. That's, but it's not. That doesn't add literally any weight to her acting role, her acting credit there. Literally zero weight to it. But anyway, brunette Zealot accused should be the headline, right? Exactly. Well, maybe this article focuses on the person with more star power. Yeah, I mean that's what we're talking about. Well, yeah, but star power barely. We saw the her credits. There is no star power there. This is focusing an article on the person with something recognizable that'll get you to click on this link. I wonder how long ago this person came forward and how long the media decided to sit on it until it was way closer to release day. Oh. Yeah, I guess I don't. Well, actually, we can look in the article, see. Go back to the article. Accuse the court. Sexual abuse and 5. Pythian, the woman. According to the BBC. The BBC reported. Let's go to the BBC article. Maybe we can find out. 1 day ago, news you can trust. Who appeared in Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch. Look at this! This is even worse! Holy crap, guys, do you see this? Look at this article. Zara Pythian, who appeared in Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch, is accused of numerous sexual offenses along with her husband, Victor Mark. You put Benedict Cumberbatch's name in this? The actual star of this. You put she appeared in Doctor Strange with him, right? As if these two were like on the same level. Like, yeah, I guess they were on screen. Maybe at some point, like at the same time, maybe there's a frame or two with them together, right? But it's not like Doctor Strange like co-actors or like love interest in the movie, because you know the movie where you know his the person he desires dies, or he gets hurt. He never mind. She doesn't die, but he gets hurt in an accident, and she's a doctor. That's what it is. Any case, but he has like a co-actress, right? Who stars opposite him, a love interest. This is not his love interest or anything like that. It's just a random motherfucker, and just with Benedict Cumberbatch. Holy shit! What? Like, don't put this man's name in there. Unbelievable. Yeah, I don't know when a police interview with the woman jurist, nothing. It doesn't tell me. Yeah, it doesn't tell us when the when she came forward, and also the article we previously read said that the police encouraged her to come forward, which was an interesting detail, right? How did the police come to her first if she didn't come out? The woman, the woman who's accusing abuse, right, says that she never came forward. So that sounds like to me that there might have been other either other people who were abused by this couple, or that or that like maybe they found like something on their computers or something that like led them to this, right? Like they found some sort of digital footprint that led them to this discovery. So it's like weird. How did the police come to her and ask her to testify on abuse she hasn't talked about? Or maybe she told someone, I don't know, and then they related it to the police. It's unclear. As abuse continued, she said Mark threatened to smash her kneecaps if she told anyone. He just said nobody would believe me if I told them anyway. She told police. They always had a power over me. Mr. Mark and Miss Pythian, whose legal name is now Zara Mark, are jointly accused of 14. Okay. And Mr. Mark is also accused of 4 additional charges of indecently assaulting a child, which is in relation to another woman who complained to police. There we go. That answers that question right there. So it's another woman that complained, and that somehow led them to this woman. Maybe they even abused these 2 children together, you know, right? Like if you have one kid and you're abusing them, and you get another one in there. Maybe she related her story. She was age 15. Alleged abuse. The court was told that Mr. Mark was married to a woman called Juliet when the abuse started. Oh, wow. So yeah, this it's sounding more and more like Mark was the orchestrator of this. So Mark was married at the time. What's his acting credit? So this is 2006. Look at this. Yeah, associate producer. This is the title that both him and Zara have in common, right? At least the first one they have in common. So he's an associate producer here. I'm drawing out a situation here, okay? So he's the associate producer on this film, I guess, called Crops, right? And she's an actress or a stunt performer, probably, right? On the same set. They meet there, right? But he is also married to his wife, to some other woman, this Juliet person at the time, right? And he begins this sexual relationship with Zara, and he directs it, like he possibly grooms her, right? And gets her to help bring in young girls to him. And you know, abuse so he can abuse them. That seems like a very likely situation right now. That actually seems like a very likely situation. If he was married at the time too to someone else, this guy seems like a bit more deceitful and manipulative. Like he sees another young woman, right? He sees a young woman who's of legal age, and goes to her, and then uses her to reel in others. This is like the classic playbook, right? It's much easier to get in to abuse young children if you use a woman as bait. This is what Epstein did, right? He had a woman do that to like wrangle them for him. So I'm guessing this is all speculation, right? Circumstantial evidence and all that, but it's pretty easy to put that together. However, the marriage broke down, the court said, and Mr. Mark had an affair with Miss Pythian. After Mr. Mark had an affair with Miss Pythian, who was a teenager herself at the time. Yeah, the child continues. So it seems like he was the mastermind of this. But this at least is a better. I like this headline better. Zara Pythian and husband Victor Mark accused of sex with child. It actually doesn't mention Doctor Strange. Now they, and the first sentence in the article, they do that with Benedict Cumberbatch. Throw him out there, okay? But at the very least, the article at the top, the headline doesn't. The picture that goes along with the headline on the news site does. It puts Doctor Strange there, so okay, but slightly better. Where is the husband's picture? Yeah, he might be too small. He might just be too small to have a picture, honestly, up online. A lot of actors, minor ones, don't have, like, no one bothers to put a picture up on the site for them because they're so minor. He had so few credits there, right? So few credits. So there are a lot of blank pages on IMDb. A lot of blank pages there. So, Brad Pitt appears with Kevin Spacey in a movie from 15 years ago. Is Brad Pitt a sexual predator? Exactly. Like, don't put those two together, right? Like, don't put them together. This movie is 2016 that came out. 2016. That's 6 years ago. 6 years ago. I found an article that says she told the court today, the 28th. Okay. Thank you, Muggsy, for that. Zara Pythian, whose cousin's roommate once had lunch with Benedict Cumberbatch's housekeeper's brother, is accused of sexual misconduct. Exactly. Thank you. This is crazy. Oh, this is so crazy. That's Prime. Wow. So the husband sexually assaulted 5 underage girls. 5? So far, I'm counting 3. But I've counted 23. I'm not sure if she was underage at the time. She said the article said she was a teenager, but that doesn't mean that she was underage. She could have been 18 and been a teenager. So I'm not sure if she was. I just don't know. And the previous article said that she was 20 or 21 at the time of the abuse of the 13-year-old. So I don't know. And she was on the set. At least we could see that they were working together on that set. So that could have been it. But it's a possibility that she was like a 17-year-old when they started. I don't know. I don't fucking know. And then he got her that job on the set of Crops. That's also a possibility. Kobi says, "Hey, we like vibe. Mind if we buy you a drink?" Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Debate board. What article is Prime discussing? I will show you. I'll show you the article. We were discussing this article. Debate board. And thank you for being here, debate board. I hope you're having a fantastic night. This is the article that caught my attention. And set me off because of the headline there. Thanks for being around. Bottomless Prize. The story was has Big Keith Rainier, Allison Mack energy. Oh, Allison Mack. Oh, I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, Naira Sock says this is the husband's picture. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, this is the guy. All right. Yeah, this is his picture. That's the guy. Yeah. Ugh. And then like this guy like threatening a 13-year-old girl to break her kneecaps. She talks. Ugh. God. Well, there he is. So if you wanted the picture, thank you so much, Naira Socks. Diamond Hands Naira Socks for helping us out with that. Doobie says, wasn't this lady basically an extra in the movie? Yes, Doobie. That's exactly what we're talking about. Doobie, 100%. That's what we've been discussing. Is that this woman was barely a part of this, right? But like the most misleading headlines have been put out there. Who is she in Doctor Strange? She is Brunette Zealot. She doesn't get a fucking name. She's Brunette Zealot. That's who she is. She's mostly she's a minor actress, like minor, and she's mostly a stunt actress, so like a stunt double. That's what she does. She does stunts. So they had a few action scenes there, and she was part of that. And I'll show you guys again for people who are just walking in, right? So this is the title of the article. Doctor Strange actor Zara Pythian and her husband accused of sexually abusing a 13-year-old child. And then we go to the BBC article that inspired that article. And it doesn't have Doctor Strange at the top, but it says Zara Pythian, who appeared in Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch, is accused of numerous sexual offenses with her husband, Victor Mark. Yeah, like that's what they do. This it's utterly ridiculous. So that's just for the new people who are coming into the channel. It's rough. Dr. Demand says, oh, okay. Cards on the table. I just got back from an NFL draft party and I've been drinking, coming in hot tonight. Oh, it's fine. Mugsley says, well, found another article that refers to her as a Doctor Strange star in the first paragraph. And the last paragraph starts with, Accident Man 2-star and her husband have denied all such allegations. Hey yo, is that Brunette Zealot? Exactly. Yo, oh snap, is that Brunette Zealot? Yo, can I get a picture? What? Oh man. Abusing the Doctor Strange Association for the clicks. Yeah, it's gross. Juba says, it's an important story. Exactly, yeah. But it feels like they're slandering the MCU for clicks by intentionally implying that she was a bigger part of the movie than she was. Exactly. It's not like, okay, so there's another actor, right, working for a different company. His name is Ezra Miller. And if you guys have been following any entertainment news, you've heard of this, right? And I don't follow entertainment news, and I've heard of this, right? Only because it's dealing with the DCEU, right? The DC Extended Universe. Have I heard of this? Ezra Miller is the actor who plays Flash in the movies. Um, Now Ezra Miller has been accused of assault multiple times. Like, and I don't mean like a few years ago. I mean last year and this year. Like, I mean a few weeks ago. This guy, he keeps getting arrested. He's got anger issues. I don't know this. I think it's they. I think he's non-binary. He's non-binary, and he's a bit of an odd bird. He says that he's not sure he would describe himself as human. That's aside. That's not important. But just saying that their pronouns are they them. So putting it out there. But they have been accused of like attacking women, right? Grown women, like throwing chairs at them and choking one, and like getting tossed out of parties and like starting fights in like clubs. This guy has got a lot of issues, right? So if you put the article, and I've seen articles, Flash star Ezra Miller arrested once again for assault. That is a fair headline. That's absolutely fair. He is a star of Flash. He is within the new Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts thing, right? He's been in those movies, right? And he's been in the one that just came out. And so you can put all that there. That makes sense. He's on the movie poster. He's on the movie poster, right? Miss Brunette Zealot here is not on the movie poster. It's not on any poster. Not on any promotional materials will you find this individual, right? So it's it's a bit strange. Brunette Zealot number 5 wasn't even the best Brunette Zealot. Thank you for that, Cricket. Narusock says next article should say it might have been Doctor Strange at this point. It might have been Doctor Strange. It might have been. We can't be sure. Intro Fantastic Beats. Yeah. Probably beat up the other cast members who were going to be on the movie poster. Yeah. So it's very misleading. I wanted to look at Kobi. Kobi, you still there? You sent you had a tweet about people defending ecological terrorism as more effective than electoralism to bring about climate change. Okay. Let's click on this for a hot second. Okay. This is from our friend Kobi. This is completely separate from what I was talking about. This is absolutely stunning. It is neither motivating nor true to say that climate crisis is past the point of no return. It's neither motivating nor true to say that climate crisis is past the point of return. Hi, I'm Jake Gyllenhaal, and I'm hosting SNL this week with Camila Cabello. I don't know what's happening here. Hank, what do you think this is the number one most important thing we can do to stop climate crisis? Vote. Okay. And but so what exactly is because we disagree, so, however you should give me music. Okay. What do you who's the problem here? Kobi, if you could explain a bit more about what sets you off. If you're still here, Kobi, I'm not sure if you are. But this is the tweet you wanted to talk about. Tell me more about that. Anyway, yeah, again, that's the husband. Okay, so these are more links. Yeah, this is what I clicked on before. What is oh, part 2? Okay. Hank, I can't believe you said this. Hank, what do you think is the number one? Yeah. One thing we can do to stop climate crisis. Fuck up an oil pipeline. Mm, okay. So okay. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, Kobe, you'll have to come on and we can have a larger explanation about this. I'm not exactly sure where to take that. Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to talk about this thing about the media misdirection. So and how like utterly egregious that was. So yeah. Okay. Let's go back to just chatting. Yeah, sure. We need eco-fascism. Exactly. Z Bubble Guts says, surprising that people still think the US can do anything about climate change when China and India are not on board. I have stuff to say about that, Z Bubble Guts, but thank you for being here. Yeah, if you want, jump into the room. I'm in private, Kobe, if you want to jump in and have a conversation about that thing. Yeah, I wanted to bring all that up. It's pretty messed up, guys. I think the sensationalism is a problem. It makes it difficult for people to trust the media, right? When they do these things. I don't like, I get it. Like, you got to get clicks. I get that. I understand the basic struggle to get clicks. That makes sense, but these I think especially news sources that have so much trust placed into them, that they should be doing a little bit better. Anyway, we have my man Kobi is with us. Kobi, how are you?
What is up? What is up? I'm good. I'm chill. I just got off of work, so I'm sort of recovering, rejuvenating myself. But yeah, no, I'm chilling.
Okay. Let's yeah, let's put this in here. Okay. And let me turn on the thing. Okay.
Yeah. I'll definitely say I probably should have gotten a little bit more context there with that. I didn't really think about, without reading the comments more and kind of seeing like the tone of the replies to that tweet. You don't really get the message. But that tweet, as you saw, had like 50,000 replies. Every single reply and all the replies that are like getting any kind of response are like all very obviously supporting like at minimum ecological terrorism, and at in the most charitable, the more like civil disobedience kind of stuff. And I'm like super duper skeptical of this. Like I know I'm very liberal pilled. I'm very sorry, go ahead.
So do me a favor. Let's like because we may or may not end up turning this into a video on YouTube, right? So like encapsulate the whole thing for us, right? Start to finish.
I will do so. A very popular person named Hank Green, who talks about like progressive politics, did a TikTok where he talked about how we should not say that climate change is irreversible. That's like doomer, and it's not true, and that it's just not helpful. And somebody in the comments asked him what he believed was the best response to climate change, and he said voting. And people were absolutely roasting him on the timeline. They were very much disagreeing in this. Like I was saying, some of the people were more so believing that we need to do like civil disobedience. Some people are saying strikes. Some people were posting like the Greta Thunberg kind of stuff. On the other side, people being a little bit more like, like that meme I put. I don't want to get you banned here, but go into Minecraft and use the TNT item, just to do that. I know, people advocating, many bad things, including some of the people that I was kind of like, kind of going back and forth with in the replies. And I think that's like a really, really common like viewpoint. At the very least, that voting is not going to fix climate change, and we're not going to be able to like vote our way out of climate change. And again, in the little more maximalist, the little more extreme, that we should kind of take armed action against that. And I just like really disagree with this. I'm a lot more reformist minded, but I'd be interested to see what you say like about this. I also know that you were kind of seeing somebody was talking in the chat about the very common talking point. It's regardless of what America does, other countries are going to continue to exploit the world. I personally actually think America can lead the way in this. We have a lot of influence economically, global, and like trade. And at the end of the day, like I don't think that we're going to be able to stop traffic and stop people from destroying a rainforest. I don't think we're going to be able to wrestle up enough like Metal Gear Solid, diamond dogs to go into the Amazon and like take out like loggers. Like that's just not going to happen. Like we're you're fighting an uphill battle there, right? If you're fighting loggers in the Amazon, they're equipped by $1 million oil companies. You're equipped by whatever people you can get to support you. If you're trying to like shut down if you're trying to shut down infrastructure in America, that's what makes people's life works in America. People like the infrastructure. People like that. That's a good thing. When I think a lot of people, especially now when they look at Ukraine, I know a lot of people didn't like this take, but a lot of people see a country that looks very much like America and they see it like fucking destroyed and they think like, wow, that's never happened to me. I never really even worried about that happening to me, and kind of puts that into perspective. I don't think that civil disobedience that messes up that is going to help. I think that a lot more of a reformist minded, I don't 100% agree with it, but a more Green New Deal oriented approach is much more realistic. What's your thoughts here, Brian?
Okay. I have lots of thoughts. So we're talking about Hank. I like Hank Green. Hank
I'm
Green
grabbing a
is...
drink here. You're back.
Sure. I like Hank Green. I think he is a interesting person online. Like he does lots of things on like YouTube. He's a content creator. He does like he's on the channel Sideshow, which is when I first got introduced to him, and he just like wholesome tidbits about science and how like science is great and here's why you should learn about it, like interesting facts that science has uncovered, mysteries that are still yet to be discovered or figured out in any case. And he does talk about like progressive politics as well on his own channel. So overall I like him. And this is a simple question that was asked of him, like, what to do about climate change. But like to think that the answer would be blowing up a pipeline, the most effective thing to do is to blow up a pipeline so that they can rebuild it and then pass laws that rightly say, well, protesters are a danger, right? So let us use police power to crack down on them, like they did in was it for the that big pipeline in North Dakota, the Keystone XL, I think it was. That's where actually AOC was there in the demonstration I'm thinking of. I'm not sure if it was for the Keystone XL or whatever, right? But it was for one of those major pipelines that was being built a few years ago. And Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, she was down there protesting. Was her big awakening, and then she ended up running for Congress afterwards. But a lot of people were there, like peaceful protesters who were trying to stop this pipeline being built, which is absolutely fair to do. Right? And then the police, right? This is like in North Dakota or some shit, right? Or South Dakota. And the police came down hard on them. Hard. They were using brutal tactics to try to crush this thing, right? And then blaming the protesters. Oh, the protesters are violent. And so we had to use all these powers. We had to injure these people. We had to shoot at them. Did they even use dogs against them? Like, it was crazy. Like, the level of abuse there. Like, look into this shit. It's amazing. And that's what happens when it's peaceful protesters. And there were bills in red states, of course, but bills. I don't think any of them got passed, but to give people the power to run over protesters, right? There were bills that said that if protesters are in the way on the streets, they should run them over. This actually might have also been sort of rated to BLM because these things were happening at the same time. But to then say that, what we should be doing is enacting violence. I don't know about that. Like, why encourage that when instead the tool for change would be a political revolution. right? I think it'd be fair to say that the answer here is not as simple as vote, right? Simple as saying vote, because vote only gets you so much. We've been voting for the entire time, right? People have been aware of climate change and its disastrous effects for a very long time and been concerned about it, and they've been voting, and nothing much has happened, to be fair. So you could say that maybe leaving it up to pure electoralism, leaving it up just to the ballot box is not enough, right? You should agitate, you should protest, right? I should make it clear to your politicians this is an important thing, and that their jobs are on the line, if they don't respond to this emergency, and it is an emergency. I think that would be a fair criticism. But to say, oh no, hey Hank Green, on your public platform, go encourage people to take violence. What if someone gets killed? Like, what if people get killed? We've had people come on this channel who worked for oil companies, right? Who've worked as like on the rigs, or somehow tangential to it. What if one of them died because of that? Like, are you ready for that in your conscience? Like, it's unbelievable. So I'll start there. I ranted for a little bit. What do you think, Kobi?
So this is like I want to be very sympathetic to the perspective of voting is not done enough, but this is the reason why I'm still in like the liberal mind prison, is because I don't see as much the pipeline between the civil disobedience and these protests, and then like where that change comes from. It seems like there needs to be, and perhaps the criticism could be more many. You could put this criticism on the Democratic Party and like the establishment, but there doesn't seem to be like that. There doesn't seem to be the merging of these energies. It seems like you get this big energy of the protest, and that exists. There's what's it called? Extinction Rebellion. There's a bunch of different groups. Sunrise Rebellion or whatever. Yeah, the different groups, right? That do all kinds of things. You see this every couple, almost like every month. There's a headline somewhere around the world of some kind of protest that shuts down something. There was just people were applying to me. There's the thing that a bunch of scientists locked themselves to a door of a pharmaceutical company or something like this. But I don't see the pipeline here. Maybe there's like, I mean, perhaps I'll concede that you're putting it into the news. You're making it. We're talking about it in part. In part, the reason we're talking about this is because of that climate protest where the people handcuffed themselves. That was the last one, right? I believe that Hank was responding to that. But like, and I don't know. That's just where I'm skeptical. Like, where does this energy translate into anything?
That's a good question, and it can't be blind electoralism, right? So if your thought to do something about the climate crisis is to put a Democrat in office, well, Joe Manchin is a Democrat. I guess he goes in office, right? Joe Manchin, who owns like a coal company, himself, who like directly benefits and directly gets in the way of climate change legislation, right? Like he directly fights that, right? And says, "Oh, I'm protecting the workers of America," or like protecting us from inflation, or whatever the fuck he pulls out of his ass on that particular day. It doesn't matter. He's just going to vote no. So voting blue no matter who is a failure. Again and again, I'll say it, it's a fucking failure. No, what you have to do, and at least in America, right, in the States, is vote within the primary system, right? Well, one thing, push candidates there who would be worthy candidates, and then from there, vote for them in the primary system so that they can make it to the general election. Because once you're at the general election, and that's when you're starting to pay attention, it's already too fucking late. Then it's, what did Barack Obama said? Like, you got fish and steak or something like that, right? You have two options. Choose, which one do you like the most? Or which one do you hate the most, right? And don't choose that one. Doesn't matter at that point. Like, if it's general election in West Virginia, you have a problem with Joe Manchin, and you're only paying attention at the general election, it's too late. It's too late. So So to answer your question, Kobe, and I'm sorry, I've kind of gone off the rails here a little bit. But to answer your question, it has to be the link here. Is a multi-year process of building out a grassroots power and organization and the ability to push up candidates, to find people who will be worthy candidates, to push them up, and then gather public support to get them elected, and then not just one, right, but a whole series of them to flip the Congress, to flip the Senate, to flip the White House, to put someone in there who is actually responsive. So that's the process. That's the link. And so far, just the final thing. It's not that there's one missing link in this chain. There's many, right? And people only attach themselves to, oh, I'll go and vote in the general election, and then I've done my part. It's not enough. Go ahead.
Yeah. I agree here. And so I want to like pivot slightly to a place where I might disagree. I'm going to levy a bit of a defense of like kind of the idea of vote blue no matter who. I think that like depending on what your goal is, it's either very ineffective or very very effective or ineffective. If the goal simply is to keep if you believe that there is sort of a inherent difference, a DNA difference between the Democrats and Republican Party, and that the way they govern, the way they make decisions, that even the worst Democrat is better than the best Republican, then I think that the position of vote blue no matter who makes a lot of sense and is a very reasonable position, and it actually works, obviously, right? If your belief is that you kind of have to do this, I am kind of sympathetic to this. I kind of mind looking in American history, and I've yet to kind of like be able to make this like not a conspiracy theory, but like I kind of like think that there's like this like, I don't know how to put it. There's like this kind of like this tend against more of a like industrialist centralization, you sort of bureaucratic urban industrialism versus more of like a like more power to like regional landlord, or in the old days it'd be called more regional like landlords and business, and the more regional business class versus a more centralized business class. And I would argue that that's the two organs of American power that propel the Democrats and the Republicans, right? The Republicans are this sort of more rural capital power, while Democrats are more of the centralized local capital power. And I view this as like a sort of force that goes back and forth in American history. And so I am very sympathetic to vote blue no matter who, because I view the Democrats and Republicans as kind of representing two almost diametrically opposed sides of American power. But I would see, and maybe you'd be more sympathetic to the other view, which you would view American power to be more of a homogenous upper class, and that the Democrat and Republicans to have the differences to be a little bit different when you get to some of the worst Republican and the best Democrat maybe are a little bit more similar. But maybe that's a mischaracterization.
No, it's always Kobe. You have a clear eye view of these things. This is why I love talking to Kobe. He's just a fun person to interact with. That's more along the lines. I can see your position, right? So like, there's not like some massive gulf in between us. But I see your position. I understand your position. I think when you say the Republicans and Democrats represent these diametrically opposed power structures, like power centers in America, right? Yes. By represent, do you mean that they go to Washington, D.C., right? Or their state capitals, I guess, too. But like go to Washington, D.C., and they like are technically the representative of the people that's fallen within these lines, right? Who are linked to these power structures. Yes, they do represent them. They are the representative of those individuals. But do they actually follow through? Are they actually legislating in a manner that is reflective of these things? No, not at all. So, right? Go ahead.
We've actually had this very similar disagreement before in the past, which is the idea of like, even if a specific politician is the representative of the specific place, if their actual interest is more so guided by like a specific couple business interest in that area, are they really the representative? And I think you're making like a larger systematic argument here, which I would argue. I believe that these more rural versus more urban central, power structures which I'm kind of making a Marxist analysis here. I really mean it's basically like capital and business owners. I think that they are the ones that ultimately influence the ideology of the people that are going to be living in these places, right? So that the parties, the people that they end up, so that the people that the representatives of these different places, of these different power structures, are going to represent the interests of these places regardless. In other words, I believe that if you live in a town in which there's like a big crawdad factory in which all the jobs are done there, I believe that you have a material interest to be pro that crawdad company, to kind of be sympathetic to them, blah 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 blah. Almost irregardless of if they treat you poorly, because that's your connection to the land. And I think that's a little bit too of an old world way of viewing things. We have a much more centralized economy, but I think that's kind of the way I'm framing things in my mind.
Okay.
So in other words, if I represent the crawfish company, I kind of am more than likely going to represent at least some of the interest and a majority of the material interest of the people that live there, if that makes sense. Not in all ways, but in some ways.
Yes. Yeah. To say that, I think that's correct. I think that's broadly correct. That to say that representatives are most responsive to the capitalist class. Now, you can frame this as that they are being responsive to the community. If this crawfish company is the biggest employer in their district, right? Well, then it only makes sense that you have to be responsive to that. Like, you need this thing to stick around, right? If this company leaves or collapses or whatever, it'll be devastating for your district. So to represent your people, to a certain extent, you have to represent this company. So that's a tension that a lot of representatives have to deal with, especially those in poorer districts. And please, if you represent Manhattan, right? If you represent Manhattan, that's not necessarily the case. Like, the financial industry isn't going anywhere. There's more than one industry in Manhattan. Lots of things happening there, right? In different boroughs in New York. So you don't have to necessarily be beholden to one industry. They tend to be, because that's how they get paid to run again, right? That's how they manage to run again. They get money from real estate tycoons, right? That's the New York way of doing things. Real estate runs everything there. So yes, I agree in the broad sense that to be a representative, you have to represent the primary interests of your district, and that might just happen to align with corporate interest, right? But as far as the workers are concerned, as far as the individuals in your district are concerned, right? They need this thing. They need this corporate interest, and they will align themselves with it, because if it's gone, they know the consequences will be devastating for them. True. But there's more to it than that, right? There's more to it. There are other interests that can influence them, right? Like, then how is the Israeli lobby ever like, what is their power, right? Like where is their power base here in the States? Many Jewish Americans don't agree with the Israeli lobby, right? And honestly, there's not many Jewish individuals, just like numerically. So, like, why is the Israeli lobby has such outsized influence? Because it's never that cut and dry, right? As how representatives operate, right?
Yeah. I want to address that, but I think you can make an interesting point here, bring up like foreign policy, because I think that it kind of changes the paradigm a little bit. It does kind of affect electoral politics, in which this theory that I'm representing of like rural versus urban power does not fit into. But just to just to resynthesize my point of that, I view the Republicans as just representing a different element of the capitalist class that I view as like inherently more reactionary than I view as the other part, and that's just like that's the horse I'm hitching my wagon to. But just to talk about the other idea, I kind of view a little black pilled. I kind of wonder, maybe this is going to change in the era of like a Russian war, but it really does seem like there's no way that foreign policy is not going to just be almost not totally dictated, but very much dictated by like foreign investment and that kind of stuff. Because it's like, man, people not. I don't know how. I don't know why people would care about this kind of shit, right? Like, why would the average person concern themselves so much so that there should be a voting issue about an issue that's happening elsewhere in the world? And like, it's so hard to say in while I'm saying it now, and I'm I've argued in this podcast like on this channel, like I'm in favor of more support for Ukraine and more support for Myanmar and all those kind of places, but like at the end of the day, like these are hyper complicated situations. It is really easy to find yourself accidentally supporting a really fucked up side. Many times it is not. It's not easy. You have for example, Mariupol is being sieged right now by Russians, and I'm sure there are many times where there are Azov people that could be described as fascists. They're probably fighting along people that are not fascists at all, because that is just the way that's the way. And if you give that group guns, you're giving guns to both sides. I totally recognize a lot of people. Most people are probably just going to say, no, we should probably actually just not. We should do peace. We should not involve ourselves in these wars. We should not exasperate wars in any possible way. We shouldn't involve ourselves in we should not involve ourselves in the affairs of these other countries. Look at what happened when Cuba, Philippines, I mean, go down the list forever. That seems to just be like such a obvious argument, which then that most people are going to be sympathetic to in America, that then leads to the obvious, the second part, which is any government and whatever part of that, whatever or government or foreign body or foreign group that wants to influence American opinion. At the end of the day, if you can flood the airwaves with one message, and the people don't have a lot of information, they're probably going to believe your message, right? And I think that there's actually, to be very, one of the things I'm kind of, one thing that I think that a lot of people that are very pro Ukraine will not talk about at all. I think that we can agree that there is like it is a very one-sided narrative on mainstream media about what's happening in Ukraine. It's that Putin is like a madman and he just decided to invade Ukraine. Totally. And I do not agree that NATO is like this aggressive imperialist force necessarily, but I definitely think that there is a more nuanced version that is not given. And I think that's reasonable to be skeptical of that.
Yeah, foreign policy. I shouldn't have used the example of dealing with foreign policy because of what you just said, right? Like saying that the average person doesn't interact with that, doesn't think too hard about these situations. And that's why all kinds of shenanigans. That's why the president's honestly is so powerful when it comes to foreign policy, because the American people have proven to be an ineffective check against them for like whenever they do something fucked up, right? It's really tough to keep track of these things. There's so many interests at play, right? America could be just like the villain in the story, but maybe not. If you're a peace-minded person, saying don't put any guns into a volatile situation does make intuitive sense, and it's something I can be sympathetic towards. But as well, then that means that these people get run over, right? If the Ukrainians just get steamrolled and they have no chance of fighting if we don't give them support. And we have Putin, who is a vicious authoritarianism, who's straight up disappearing people in his country right now, right? He gets to just take over this place. Is that a better outcome? I don't know, right? Like, those missiles are going to fall down on that country any which way, give them the ability to shoot back, I suppose. But it's not easy. It's not easy, right, to judge these things. Oh, also, yeah, we're going to be putting it in the hands of actual factual Nazis. We're actually going to be arming them. So I don't know. It's difficult, and like I can tell you, if I gave all these factors to my parents, my father's been like keeping track of it, but like it'd be overwhelming for him. It just is. Yeah.
To kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just agreeing with you there, right? So then, relating it back to the domestic issues, where people do have a slightly better handle on things, right? Especially when it affects their local community. There are, if representatives, talking about the original subject, Democrats are actually representative of their people, then you wouldn't see this rampant financialization of every sector of our economy, because that doesn't help individuals, right? Like the average person is not helped by that. It's their donors, Wall Street donors. They are helped by financialization. They are helped when we put things. We use a market-based approach to fucking everything, right? To it gives them a chance to enter in more, to encroach more and more in our lives, and have more opportunity to draw profits from things in which they could not have done before. There isn't a voter base for that. It doesn't exist. So why does it keep happening? Because those Democrats, right, aren't so different from those Republicans, and that they take money from those Wall Street executives, right? They do their bidding. So they aren't purely people. This is the Destiny's fucking argument. They aren't purely avatars of the people that put them in office. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't necessarily totally have like the sort of like destiny positioning. I do think that there's a lot of influence in of capitalism, but I think that a lot of the times
you've betrayed me before. You've betrayed me before. Yeah, but Destiny was here. I was like, oh, Kobi's gonna back me up. He comes in, he takes Destiny's 5, so mad.
But I do think though that a lot of the time it's like a lot more organic. And what I mean by that is that it's like, but not, organic, or something organic can be a parasite, right? I think a lot of the times what it is that it's like the way that capital, if you look at like the sort of like the idea of like cultural hegemony, like the way you want it, capitalists are going to want to like get the support from the ground up, right? You're going to want to like, you see, I mean, I sometimes disagree with this when sometimes people go a little bit crazy, but you'll see people like, high school reports that like, sort of talk about, list all the ways that it's bad, all the ways that a public approach to this could be bad. And now list all the ways that a free market solution could have made it better. It's like, okay, well, obviously there's obviously like a tilt here. I remember a lot of this stuff. I remember watching a show when I was a little kid on, what was it called? Was a show, Discovery Channel or History Channel called America: The Story of Us, and it was a story of great engineering projects. It was a very cool story, but like, dog, that's a very obviously like a very like at least an industrialist viewpoint of America, and very obviously a capitalist viewpoint of America that is highlighting, well, American progress is that we build things, we build more big things, and we do bigger stuff. There's a lot of this that is I think very subliminal, I guess you could say. Where at the end of the day, I think actually the sad effect is there actually are a lot of people that would be very sympathetic to a more market of, for example, I think the one example I would not agree with is like Social Security. I think a lot of the opposition to that in Congress is like totally manufactured. People love Social Security. That's like a universally agreed upon program. But I think like there are a lot of people that do like the idea of like doctor choice. They don't like the idea of having a huge wait list. There's a lot of these kind of scary stories that people have with healthcare that I think that does really affect them. And I mean, listen, I've been in the healthcare system. It's fucking horrible. It's not hard to convince somebody that the other systems are going to be bad too. I've dealt with food stamps. Dude, there's a great example of this. There was a tweet that went out that it was a person going through like the process of applying for food stamps in Alabama, and it was a 127-page document, and that she had to write a thing where she had to say yes or no if she wanted to be given contraceptives. She had to write yes or no if she wanted to be given a class about why abortion is bad. Like literally, there's like a million things like that for food stamps, right? That's what people think when they think about government healthcare. They think that I'm gonna have to fill that out when I want to get my inhaler, right? I'm gonna have to like sign up for all this kind of shit. And so I kind of get that. That kind of I kind of like that. That's my perspective. But I'm interested. If you want to keep going down that road, we can. But interested kind of bring it back to climate change and to kind of mix it with foreign policy. What is your perspective on the idea of other countries like India or China not going with the sort of, I guess you could say, same approach to changing their economy to be more green? Do you view them? Do you take the perspective that they should have room to industrialize, even if that means emissions? What do you think there?
I think the answers aren't easy as people, green-minded people like me, want it to be, right?
Yeah. I agree there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also green-minded in that, like, we need money to do this. So, like, if you guys want to sub to the channel, get bits of gift subs, help out the channel a little bit, right? It'll be a huge help. Thank you so much for the ones who are here. But yeah, support the channel if you can, or use our PayPal button or anything like that. Sub to channel, give bits, give subs. It does help us a lot. Thank you so much. Okay, back to this. I think the answers, yeah, aren't so simple. I'd like to say that, well, we could just start a green revolution, and that things will fall into place. But it's not so simple. Oh, well, hey, we actually got a sub. Thank you, Starlight Dazzle, for being so kind as to sub for 1 month for tier 1. Thank you. New sub. That's really kind of you, man. It's really kind of you. Thank you so much. It's really kind. Okay. Yeah. I believe that American can lead. I believe that the US can lead on this issue. That if we were serious about this, right, and we like pulled out all the stops, I think we could have a big make a big difference, and we could make it easier for other countries to transition. So, what does that look like? If the United States had that green revolution, where we got serious about like building windmill farms and solar plants, and investing in improving those technologies and other like green technologies. Those are only two, but the two that just come to mind, right? But investing in improving those technologies and their efficiencies, like bringing to bear American innovation, right? The story of us, bringing that to bear, right? Yeah. Then I think we could drive down the price of the green transition, and we can sell that, put some money in the capitalist class pocket and the proletariat, right? We could sell that to other countries, export that, along with a foreign policy that works along with it, right? So right now, our foreign policy works to promote American interests, and it's not wrong to say American interests are oil interests, right? Like carbon-based energy interests, right? And that's reflective of the things we do, right? That's what makes the Middle East make sense, it's because those things happen to align. But if we realign our priorities, right? If we put all this energy, right? Put all this behind green energy, and build up all these industries, well, then our government can report to them, right? Like we can have those CEOs give to congressional people, right? And our interests will align, and they'll be pushing that. Okay, we want these other countries to start using American solar panels, right? So how do we do that? Well, we put pressure on their governments. Hey, you got to be making this switch now. It's very important at this point. And do you not have the technology to have this green revolution? Well, we have that right here for you. We can sell that to you. And it's on the cheap. Maybe we'll even subsidize it to get it in your hands, right? And if you want to repair American solar panels, maybe you'll have to use American parts or whatever, some shit like that, right? This is a way that it could work. However, still, even if we did all that, there's no reason to say any other country would be as serious as we would be, and that they don't have other counterbalancing interests that push back, and that we have no control over. But I think it's still worth it that America, one of the biggest polluters, right, us and China, that we are one of the biggest. It's worth it that we have that fight and make those changes here, right? And then as a secondary step, let's worry about what happens in other countries. Does that make sense? I hope so.
It does. So, something I'm a little more black pill, I think. This is what I'm thinking, okay? China recently started to say that they're actually be reopening coal plants, and they actually previously said they're going to be closing down. They're kind of changing their opinions on that. I think a lot of people are seeing that with like the natural pipe stuff, the natural gas stuff with like Ukraine or whatever, and stuff. And like people are being a little bit more interested. Like, hey, maybe we want to be able to heat our homes in different ways. I actually think a lot of these countries, like China, like the argument people always have is they say like, oh well, the per capita argument. They'll say like, well, America per capita releases much more carbon emissions, and that to China or to India, and that China and India are going to become green by the time that they industrialize to the point that their per capita is more similar to us. But like, I actually think that like the quality of life that like people want just keeps going up, right? Like people want like 2 electric cars that have like these lithium batteries that need to be replaced all the time. We want to have ever more faster and tinier computers and everything. Now 50, I have my bong that has a computer in it, or a microchip, and my phone, and all these kind of things, right? It's more and more and more. And I think that I'm sure there's like plateaus for some of this stuff. Obviously, people are not going to have like 7 electric vehicles or whatever. We're going to get better at making electric vehicles. We're going to get better at making, if the entire world had electric vehicles, we would probably have a lot better storage for them and stuff. But like there are so many people in this fucking world that if all of us had like the standard of living that I think we would agree is like ethical for us all to have, I really don't know if you could actually do that. I don't know. Even with, people, somebody saying, even China's doing nuclear. Even if we got off of oil, Touring News is really good talking about this. We're running out of sand. We can't make concrete. We're running out of forest. We're running out of old growth forest. We're running out of, what was it? Like, I think like 30, or sorry, there's a stat that I might mess this up. I think the stat might be that every decade, 10% of the insect population dies, but it might not be that. But that's the ballpark. That it's like I think we can all agree that we have massive die-offs of insects, which are incredibly important to the world ecological system and stuff. That kind of stuff. We can't transition to a new type of bug. You know what I mean?
God, but I fucking hate bees. So I don't really cry for their deaths, but like I understand their importance. I get it. You don't have to tell me, but like, yeah. Fuck bees. So what was your question there? Was there a question?
No, I was just kind of giving my I guess like my perspective there. I'm pessimistic on on if we are going to be able to sort of keep up with how many hurdles we have. Like even if we were to kind of go to like America goes to like green energy, it's like, okay, well there's all these other things that we all have to contend to, with also talking about the idea of like we are now, consumerism has won. If any ideology won the 20th century, it was consumerism. Every country in the world beyond like Afghanistan at this point fucking believes that consumerism is the way that we should do everything, right? And I think that that's like a little, these kind of things are like a little bit worrying,
Yeah. Okay. So I can work with that. Yes, you are absolutely right on consumerism, right? The fact that people think of themselves first as consumers, then as citizens, right? And this language of like, you are buying product. Everything's a packaged product. Even your government is a packaged product, and you're consuming it, and you're like searching for the best one. It's encroaching on all areas of our life, and in ways that are surprising. Until we'll take a step back and realize how people used to talk about themselves, right? And see the difference, and how that changes our perspective and everything, right? Like being a healthcare consumer. Like that idea it's a problem. It's a problem. We'll just leave it at that, right? But in any case, I think that's, I can't speak for many other countries. I'm sure I can only speak for how America is, and yes, that's true for there. I can't speak for the rest of the Western world. I don't know if they all look at themselves in the same way. I can't say that. And I doubt that most of the rest of the world feels the same way. So when I talk about that green revolution, it is more than switching to renewables, right? That is only a start. It's an important start, very important start. But the next step, yes, is rethinking our lifestyles, right? Rethinking this. Looking out of my room, I have a shitload of electronics, right? I don't have an electric bong here, right? I didn't know that was a thing. Kobi has surpassed me once again. The student has become the master, right? But is this sustainable to have all these things? To have all these electronics, right? I have to take a serious look at that. Is it sustainable to, while we're having that green revolution, to have multiple electric cars? Right? Because the impact on the environment, possibly not. So I'm not so black-pilled on it, except that the time that people will realize how necessary this is this massive shift will be when it the ecological disaster would be so paramount that it's like destroying the infrastructure around us. The infrastructure that we're used to having, this very expensive, carbon intensive infrastructure, right, is literally crumbling around our feet. And people are like, oh, we might have to do something about this, right? So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And if that case, I align with you there.
For sure. I'm trying to think how to kind of like recenter it. You gave me a lot there. So, something I kind of something I remember. I this happened on Twitter a while ago. I remember there was a post that was basically just like, I can't remember the exact specifics of it, but the joke basically was that like, if you're a working class person and you're upset about the raising gas prices, just like buy a bike. And that's, I think, where a lot of my black pill maybe comes from, a lot of the green movement, is I feel like a lot of the times, like, their perception of how much we're going to change society is like way different than like what I view. It's like, I'm going to die and there's going to be gas guzzling cars driving on the road. That's my estimation. I do not think that we're going to phase out gas cars, but like, you see this sometimes, people advocate for this. And I think a lot of this kind of stuff is like, it's just unrealistic to the lifestyles that people have right now in the world, right? The idea that we're going to have like a bus system or a tram system that's going to run across America, that's going to be able to get people to their job. Like, that's not, like, I don't think so. I'm very very skeptical of that. But I guess like this eco optimism, I guess you kind of call that. But I'm very sympathetic though, and I'm very happy about a lot of things that the Biden administration has done. Two of the things is they're focusing a lot on like electric vehicle tax subsidies and on electric bike tax subsidies, which are both, I think, really, really good. But that's also going with the consumerism. It's like, you're gonna be able to consume better. We're gonna make you a better ethical consumer.
Yeah. So the eco movement, the green movement, has been taken over by this consumer ideology, right? And from my understanding, this was specifically injected into it by carbon fuel companies. That, like, BP apparently played a big part in this, and I'm sure there's others as well. But BP helped people think about, like, what's your carbon footprint? That's the term, right? Yeah, your carbon footprint. So this is a bit of a scam, everyone, right? And I didn't realize it was a scam myself. I tangentially I did because of other things I had learned, but I didn't like put it together until I just like saw this video. That just like, yeah, this idea of your carbon footprint, which is, like, how much carbon did you end up burning, right? Because of your particular actions. Like, the point there is to put the onus on you, the individual. That, like, as Kobi said previously, right? Oh, if you want to make a big change in the world, buy a bicycle, right? And that'll be your biggest contribution. No, that's not going to be your biggest contribution. First of all, just being an American, existing in this westernized world, with the lifestyle that we have been living, as Kobi has been talking about, right, means that there's a certain amount of energy that you'll be baked in. You literally can't do without, right? Are you gonna not use any electricity when you have to communicate with your job? A lot of you guys have been remote working now, right? That's been affecting your carbon footprint too. Like, if you want to be a good eco consumer, then you should be limiting that. But you got to work. So it's all built in, right? And instead of putting the onus on individuals who are using the energy infrastructure that they have available to them, right, and they can't opt out of it, then the focus should be on industry, and like putting pressure there instead of like working on your carbon footprint. Now, like, it's not a bad thing to make those other choices. If you want to do that for yourself, that's fine, right? And actually encourage it. That's okay, right? Like, hey, don't pollute, right? Don't throw trash into like our waterways and like kill our a marine life. That's actually fantastic. And maybe gift the charities that are helping clean up the seas as much as they possibly can, right? It's something, right? If that's what you want to do, but that is not where the change is going to happen. It's simply not, right? Because the focus has been put on your actions when it's on an industry level, on a governmental level, where the changes need to occur. So I agree with you that that's a thing that has happened. Um, I don't think it's inevitable that this ideology will spread to the rest of the world. I think the rest of the world has different ideas about these things. They haven't been affected by American ideology, and I have a bit more hope for that.
Well, okay, well, my big argument could be here is China. That's about like 1/8 of humanity, which is already with it. India already with it. So a lot of these countries are already with it, right? I mean, I'll can give you some concessions here, which are going to be Indonesia, Malaysia, these kind of countries, which have a lot of people. If people forget how many millions and millions and millions of people live in Southeast Asia, a lot of those countries are, I think, a lot more skeptical to this for a wide variety of reasons. A lot of these countries are a lot less industrialized, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, you go to Singapore, which is Southeast Asia, very industrialized. They've been bitten by the consumerism bug as hard as harder than anybody else probably in the world, right? But yeah, I'll definitely concede that I definitely think some places I think that the three places or two places I think you're going to see it, or three I guess would be like the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia. I think interesting enough because I think that's last place you have this like really strong cultural force of Islam. You didn't really have a church in the West like anywhere. Like the Orthodox Church was kind of destroyed by the Soviet Union. The Catholic Church lost a lot of its power during the Second World War and the First and Second World War in the 20th century. The church, church in America has a lot of power, but it's always been more separated. I'm not as educated about church and state in South America, so I can't speak on that. But that seems to be in a lot of the other places there isn't that force. There's not. Oh, I mean, hell, now that I think about it, in South America, the church was behind a lot of like social activism, and was a lot of the times the church would be support, or not the Catholic Church, but the local churches would be in support of like anti-globalization movements, anti-imperialist, anti-American imperialist movements. There isn't that. In the places there isn't that. As an atheist, it seems that they have a harder time kind of resisting some of this consumerism. But the places they have that, a lot of the stronger culture, it's a little bit easier. Interesting kind of perspective from an atheist perspective. A little challenge there. Islam is the way, I guess.
So Islam is helping make that.
I would say it's more of it's like I think you have a religion, you have a social force that is not necessarily consumerist, that's not necessarily globalist, that you can turn to, that communities can turn to get legitimate material support. That if the only person, like in the West, if the only place in town on both sides is
the Walmart,
is the Walmart, right? Is Democrats that want you to consume a certain product and Republicans that want you to consume a different product. That's it. Well, in other countries, there's like literal communities where it's like, well, no, we have different values, we have different ways of doing things, we have different ways of organizing and giving out medicine and food. That is a counter against that. And that's really the only force. There isn't really any big like leftist, communes or whatever. I mean, it's like it was like the Soviet Union, America, other little nation states, and then like the church, basically religious powers, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way. That's a actually interesting way of looking at things. I mean, I've talked about how, in our fantastic, beautiful secular future, that currently we don't have anything to offer people in terms of community, that people search for that. And we'll never be able to smash the evil forces of religion until we can respond there. That people need to have a sense of belonging, and in times of trouble they need support, and governments aren't always going to be there to do that, and they respond to their local influences. So if their local influences are the church that actually looks out for them when no one else will, well then they're going to be loyal to the church. And why shouldn't they be? It just makes sense. So and we just don't have anything secular on that level at this point in time, at least not in this capitalist. I think I love how you related that back to the poison forces of capitalism and communism, and that within this capitalist society we don't even allow like an opposing force like that, a secular opposing force, to stand up. Like the church can, because the church just has already been there, is strong enough to resist being pushed out by capital influence that would like to be the only influence, right? But in terms of something secular, that can easily be destroyed, right? Be labeled as something subversive and attacked. Like we've really seen that. They've like the Black Panthers tried to do this exact thing, right?
Yeah.
Build up a parallel structure, like to the government in the way the church is, right? A parallel organization of support, right, of community, and then they assassinated their leader, right?
Bro, I mean, they made the Mormon Extermination Act because of this. The Mormons wanted to create a state that was not going to be it was not going to be a socialist state, but it was going to be religious theocracy that was going to be very against the this sort of traditional settler idea, where settlers were going to move into the West, and then that you'd have a resource flow back to these cities. Well, that's not going to happen because you're going to have a bunch of these fucking hippie ass, crazy heathen. Not that I believe this from the perspective of these people at the time. These heathen, people in the desert. With a profit, that's unacceptable. And so I'm down. The Canadian government violently suppressed potlucks, which is a very ancient practice that was practiced through all kinds of Native American bands and tribes and nations, which it's on different places, but traditionally the idea is that at the end of the season, at the beginning of I don't know if it's beginning of winter or end of winter, you'd come together, have a big meal, and you would actually give away all of your wealth. You would literally lay out all of the meat you have stored, lay it on your fine things, and it was something that was seen as a direct threat to sort of the Canadian state. It was seen as something that this valuable resources were being spent the race. These Native Americans were throwing away and burning this valuable seal fur and valuable fat, these kind of things, and it's violently suppressed because it is a alternative way of organizing a completely alternative social structure, a completely autonomous social structure to the capitalist one, to the state in general. It has to be violently suppressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which interestingly enough, I'm not making a very good argument against my initial point that you should not do terrorism. I'm making an argument that the Mosaics are violently suppressed and kind of autonomous. Or don't do that. Just vote for Democrats. It'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I haven't done same thing either, right? That in the face of those facts, where we have a government for centuries have been crushing these movements, right? They're the ones that we know of, and the ones we don't. Thank you, Kobi, for educating me a bit on this potluck idea. I had never heard of that. That is fascinating. And once the threat to the powers that be, the ones in government, the ones you voted for, then there is a response. Again, just I think it doesn't necessarily negate my point, and that you can't. Yeah, you can't just vote for anyone, right? You can't just put anyone in office. You have to put in certain people in office, right? If Native Americans or Native Canadians or the First Peoples were more represented. First Nations, excuse me, were more represented in Canadian Parliament, then that wouldn't have happened, right? Yeah. But that wasn't a possibility. So, go ahead.
Interesting. Oh, sorry. Well, this is something just since we're critiquing the evil that is Western capitalist civilization. One of the things we originally were disagreeing about is this idea, I think we agreed at least that it's bad that there are these politicians that are more so, they're kind of just they more so are just are vessels for a democratic body, and at best vessels for a democratic body, and at worst they're vessels for a corporate interest, and they're just going to do whatever that group wants. Which is interesting. There's this I was thinking about the movie The Northman. I was thinking about this book I was reading called Ritual in Prehistory, which is about the role of secret societies and rituals in ancient civilizations around the world. And the argument it makes is that these initiations in which you go through either psychedelic experiences, religious experiences, survival experiences, you go and live on an island for a certain amount of time, that sort of gives you a sort of metaphysical connection to the place of power, right? You're not just a vessel. You're not just the person that everybody votes and then you do whatever we voted to do. You're not just the person that listens to the corporate interest and does what they say. You are a person that is sort of has you've gone through, the way that it puts in the book is you've gone through a change. You've done an action that has that you can sort of demarcate in your life that has changed you, who you are, that this is now, you now have accepted this power, you have this authority, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's kind of an interesting idea there in the movie. I won't spoil it, but there's a very beautiful scene at the beginning where a father and a son go through this ritual, and the father is the king of the Viking tribe, and they bring him in. He's a berserker, which is berserkers were very, very religious leaders. They're kind of depicted as like just warriors, but they were very religious. They would have a sort of a connection with the spirits of either the boar or the bear or the wolf, and all those kind of things. And it's a very, very beautiful, it's a very beautiful scene. And I think there's something there. I think there's a lot of something that a lot of these autonomous communities, a lot of them being religious, is the reason they have an edge, is everybody believes at the end of the day that they need to do the good thing because that's like what they're being told, right? That they need to get the homeless people fed because that's what God wants, or that's what whatever the religious thing you're praying to. And that's a motivation that exists, that doesn't necessarily, it can exist in democratic movements. There are democratic social movements around the world, but that's not necessarily an inherent part. And I think that lacks a lot of the time. And I think you try to see this with like the modern eco movement, where you try to find this. A lot of the times you see people talk about, oh, we have to protect Mother Earth, or they try to like invoke like a fake spiritualism. Or the other thing is they sort of do that. And this is something I wanted to hear your critique of. They try to encompass ecological problems into all other problems, so that you'll get the widest net. Where it's like ecological problems are Black Lives Matter, and they're also trans problems, and they're also poor problems, and they're also all they're also this, and they're also that, they're also this, and that. Hoping to try to recreate the same idea that we all are wanting to do this thing. We're all in this movement because we have this sort of metaphysical urge to do so. I don't know. Because like we were talking about earlier, but like the left in general, and the secular communities not being able to have this sort of community, and that's what I'm seeing. Maybe that's what we're seeing, is that this sort of quote unquote intersectionality is just trying to create the biggest amount of net, that we don't need to have a community because our community is so big that it's sort of impossible for you to not be in our community. So you're going to have to be in the community, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I want to be very clear. Like I'm just writing this. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm sure that I think this can be used good. I do think it's good when like groups work together or whatever. But that's something I feel, right, where it's like you don't necessarily feel like there's so much talk now about like there's very little discussion about a unified version of American history of the good things. A lot of talk about the bad things. But the community we find is not in that we agree the story of us. We built big machines. It's that we agree we all are part of a group that has all been negatively affected, and we're all working to make it together. Make it together. That's the communities, that we're this big net. And I wonder what the advantages and the disadvantages are.
Yeah. So relating that to this metaphysical experience, one, I'm a bit skeptical when we talk about taking things out of the secular democratic realm, right, and the larger consequences for that.
Yep.
Like. Okay, so we have a lot of inflated egos in Congress, right? As it is. Now you tell them that
you're the bear spirit.
Yeah, right? Like the spirit of Uncle Sam is now within you. You are a chosen one.
Let's act accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll say like, okay, we must destroy Russia. Yeah, no, 100%. That's very true. I mean, again, at the end of the day, I'm an atheist. I'm skeptical because I think that magical thinking can go everywhere. You give yourself like one miracle, and then you like have like decided that like unicorns exist. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Okay, all that we're gonna do is we're just gonna agree that it's cool if we were bears, and we're gonna dress up with skins, and that would be sick. And then it's like 2 days later, it's like, bro, I think I became a bear the last time we were back. Like, I think I became a bear. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very slippery slope. Yeah. So I definitely agree there.
Exactly. Yeah. Magical thinking begets more magical thinking, begets a religion, right? And begets an entrenched power structure that you can't actually challenge on any logical basis. So I am skeptical of that. However, I am interested on this idea that, like, yeah, you get this other sense of responsibility, right? That you are a steward of your people, right? You aren't simply this representative who comes in, who gets paid by this interest or that interest, who maybe listens to your constituents every so often, right? You're the proletariat constituents every so often, and you're staying in office for a certain amount of time, and then maybe you'll leave and fuck off and be like uh, uh, work in the private industry, right? Like private sector, and get paid a lot of money, right? Like that you are doing nondescript God's work, right? I think that's I think that would shape the way quite a few people interact with our government, how representatives do, in our expectations for those individuals, right? If they're not just power hungry individuals, but they're power hungry individuals who have been gifted like this energy by the spirit of the United States land, right?
Yeah.
I think that would actually be a big change. I just don't see that the drawbacks would be the worth the benefits, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And one other thing, this is related to England, right? How they do things, right? Where they separate the head of state from the executive, right?
Yeah.
These two things are separate because people apparently need something to worship, to obey. There's a section of humanity, right? You might call them conservatives, I don't know. But there's a section of humanity that needs someone to obey, needs a hierarchy, needs a structure, and like they look to the leader. Here in the United States, the head of state and the executive are the same person, right? And so, and this happens on both sides to a certain extent, right? That there is a level of reverence given to one because they are the head of the nation, the representative of the nation, and so we should maybe not so much question them, right? They must have the good of the nation in hand. But in England, where they've effectively separated the two, like the people can get all their like their need to obey and their need to worship out on the royal family that has no real power, right? So they can do that. They can treat them as celebrities. They can name their babies after them. They can follow their every move, right? And like they can say, well, we need the royal family, right? Because they represent the nation, right? They're the spirit of the nation. What would the nation be without them? Right? And then they can turn around and look at their prime minister as like, this guy's a fucking idiot, right? Let's vote this dude out. Let's do a vote of no confidence on this guy, right? Let's give him no respect on that level. He is a civil servant. And so tying this back to what you were saying, is that if we imbue more importance on these individuals, right, that they are representing, they have some metaphysical connection to the land, to the government, right? I feel like that just engenders more worship of them and less critical thinking of their actions. More like obeying their authority than realizing these are just fallible human beings doing what fallible human beings do.
You said something earlier that made me think about something we were talking about earlier. Ultimately, we kind of started talking about this. We're talking about like what is the more effective ways to like rouse social change? Why are certain social change effective? How do we do this, right? And you're talking about this idea of like maybe the benefits are outweigh the consequences. Perhaps something I was just thinking about is like perhaps one of the reasons why that the civil rights movement was popular, this seems like the number one argument for the entire civil rights movement. If we say that, let's say the civil rights movement starts with like the end of Reconstruction, so like all the way back, like the end of the Civil War. So it's like black people trying to get rights just in general. The biggest argument has always been that we're not treating them in the way that God wants us to treat each other. That black people are like Martin Luther King made that argument. Malcolm X was literally a Muslim until like the last like 2 years of his fucking life and made that argument. Like that was that seems to be like huge. Like it was the National Council of Churches, which was really, really instrumental in a lot of the organizing that Martin Luther King did. That seems to be like talking to the idea that you were talking about of if you believe in this sort of metaphysical aspect to power, that you're gonna have higher expectations. Perhaps that's an element of that too. That we had this higher expectation of not only ourselves but of a nation because people framed it so much in this religious way, in a way that we don't with the climate crisis, right?
Yeah, so we've talked about this many times before. This is something that like the fanatic Mr. Fanatic and Gambit, GSU Gambit will bring up they happen to be religious, and
Yeah.
they mentioned the importance of the church during the civil rights movement, and it's undeniable, right? Like
Yeah.
simply undeniable, that they were instrumental in all of that, right? But instrumental for the reasons that you've already stated, and that they were the only game in town, and that they were a parallel infrastructure, like a organizational force within a U.S. A nation that was pro like racial terrorism, right? And so that was the only place to turn to. Right? But if there had been other options, then we would have organized through that, right? If people didn't just like go to church on Sundays, and that's where you could find them. That's where you could gather them all to one spot, and they deliver these messages, and decide on courses of action and provide them with resources. If you had another place, right, maybe based around some sort of like fuck, I'm dropping the name of it, but it's sort of like a union, but it's bigger than that. It's form of government that people want, not cooperatives,
Commune?
sorry, go ahead.
Commune?
Not commune, it's fuck,
Mutual aid?
no, it's bigger than that. It's
It's so big.
it's so big, it's so big. It's tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
I'm gonna DM you later on. Like, this is what I meant.
Perhaps perhaps just to back up Fnatic and GSU's argument, there was a struggle in the civil rights movement between, especially in the earlier 20th century when the Communist Party was bigger, between more labor organized focused activism and more Communist Party associated activism, and more the church focused activism. Now, perhaps we make an argument that the Red Scare really was the thing that fucked this up, but perhaps that's true. But I think I think it is interesting that the sympathies were not won by the Communist Party, were not won in large part by these labor unions. The sympathies were won more so by the churches.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't have an anti-church movement the way we had like anti-communism. Like those things,
very true.
Yeah, weren't existing on the same ground, and it didn't have like the long history that the church has. Like, yeah, these brand new things, they're not going to survive as easily, especially when they're specifically challenging the powers that be. So yeah. So so my argument against when Fnatic and GSU say that, right, is like, look, I acknowledge that's the case, that the church played this big role in anti-slavery, right, but they were the only game in town, right? There was no other option, and if we had another option, we would have organized through that. It's that simple. It's not like people didn't recognize it was a problem. It was simply the act of organizing. Organizing is a tough game, right? And you use any way to do it, right? Like, if organizing your workplace is hard to do. How do you do it, right? Well, you have to find places where people gather, find the watering holes, right? And then talk about the issues you're facing. Church is a watering hole. The break room in your organization is a watering hole, right? You get people there, you get them complaining, talk about solutions. That's how you do it. It's simple as that. It's simple as that, right? And you don't need any metaphysical or spiritual component to it to actually get big change to happen. We see that all the time throughout history. So yeah, that's my argument there. And this comes about like the mandate, right? The other mandate is that, like, oh, what about our gay brothers and sisters? Oh, Bottomless Prime, thank you for the 500 bits. Often kind. I guess you're heading out, but thank you for the 500 bits. Really kind of you. And thank you, my man Kobi, for gifting a sub to Barisha. Okay. But thank you for gifting a sub to this person. 57 subs in total. Right. One more individual person who can start subs with hype train, that'd be great. Help us out. How about the channel? Sub to the channel, get bits or give subs, resub, use your Prime gaming / Amazon Prime to help us out. Thank you for another 100 bits. Thank you so much. It really helps. Yeah, one more individual person donates, then we can start the hype train. But thank you so much. Yeah. Back to this though. Yes, there's only one game in town. We can find other ways to do it. But how do we build those things? I is a thing that I'm not sure of. That I just don't understand how we do that. I don't see. Thank you, Gobi, for gifting another sub. It means a lot. Does a lot. Yeah. What'd you say?
I'm trying to make it do the hype train. I don't know why it's not doing
no. It has to be 3 individual people. So yeah, you're one person, another person gave, so that's 2. We need a third
given
person.
Good
people. I appreciate though. It actually is helping. It's helping a lot. There's a Diamond Hands Naira Socks gifted a sub to XR. Yeah. Thank you so much.
The hype train thing, actually, I need to go because it's getting super late and I have work tomorrow morning. So if I could use this as the beginning of the hype train as my little outro here. Thank you so much for talking about this. I really, climate change is like one of my favorite things to talk about. I love talking about our inevitable species-wide doom. It's very cool. But also, I think it was kind of interesting that 2 people that typically, like, any time atheism and like religion almost ever comes up on this panel, like me and you 100% team up and argue against people, and we've come to the conclusion actually that Islam is the way, that Islam will fight against the tide of both communism and capitalism, and that we actually just need religion in America. Really, that's how we got civil rights. Some people fight climate change too, is religion. And okay, I guess that's just this is the truth, right? No, but I was reading that prehistory book, and just thinking about the idea of like the idea, I don't know, thinking about people's conceptions of like why we do things, especially in comparison. I've been very, very pessimistic with a lot of people's like nihilism I see nowadays, just in general with like everything, where like so many people's arguments for everything nowadays are just nihilism. It's like, it doesn't matter, it's fine. Like, for example, how many progressives argue in favor of like the CRT stuff, that it's like, it doesn't actually matter. This is nihilism. Kids are gonna look at not CRT, sorry, the groomer stuff. I was watching a debate where somebody says it doesn't matter if we teach as low as 2nd and 3rd graders about like porn and sex, because they're gonna see it on the internet anyways. It's like, okay, we're just gonna be nihilist, just because the worst possible outcome could happen, we can just not care at all ever about anything. Like, that's like, I don't know, that's not the way I want to like live. And I think it's interesting to kind of think about, like, not necessarily become religious, but just think about, kind of in a more metaphysical way, how we're gonna compel each other to act. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. But anyways, do the hype train, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff.
But before you leave, I just need to say nice things about Kobi. I keep saying I love talking about to Kobi, and this is the reason why. Kobi's a really fun individual, really intelligent individual, and has does his best to make his arguments logically sound. And even if I come to different conclusions, right, I know that he is always a good faith actor, and that if we first of all, we talk. The more we talk, we usually like end up like finding the bridge between our differences, right? Which is always a lot of fun. But I just know this person's going to come with a lot of facts, a perspective that no one else will, right? He's read books that no one else has, and he even gives you reading material, right? He's like, hey, if you want to learn more about this, check this out. So I always appreciate Kobi. Kobi is working different hours these days, so we don't get to see him as often as we used to. But I've been wanting to have a one-on-one with you, and this just happened to work out today. We need to do more of these. I just really enjoy talking with you. Like everything else, this is a lot of fun. You're a lot of fun. Thank you, buddy, for stopping by.
Thank you, bro. Unfortunately, I wish I was a little more interested in like the stuff we talked about earlier, the more like news, gossipy kind of stuff, or Amber Heard. I wish I could have some sort of explosive Amber Heard take that actually both of them should be in prison because of something that nobody's even talked about. But I'll talk about I'll give you the Amber Heard take another day. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.